And to further the conversation, joining me now, we have Democratic strategist and SiriusXM host Amisha Cross and former Secretary to Speaker John Boehner and MSNBC political analyst Brendan Buck. Welcome, guys. I wish you could have seen me as they were playing that soundbite. I was like, what is he saying? I mean, Amisha, Trump goes to Aurora, amplifies his distortions and his lies on immigration. Earlier, he goes to Detroit and insults that city. Why do they think this is a winning formula? I mean, do you think this is going to wear thin by Election Day?
Well, one can only hope. And he thinks it's a winning strategy because the polls still show everything neck and neck. One of the things that we've noticed is that Donald Trump never lessened up on his rhetoric as it related to migrants, but also as it related to essentially criminalizing all beings who are Latino. We've seen this across his social media as well. Just yesterday, he posted an image of young Latino men and called that what was going to happen to your communities if Kamala Harris was in charge of doing anything for housing. He is trying to scare the hell out of people about Black and brown people. That is the crux of his campaign. It is racism. It is some of the most inherent and scary xenophobic things that we've seen in this country. But it is also a playbook out of what we've seen in a lot of regimes that are authoritarian. Because annihilating any idea of multiculturalism is a cornerstone of authoritarian regimes. What we've seen time and time again from Donald Trump, not only since he's run for office or held elected office, but long before when he was a real estate mogul in New York, was his animus towards people of color. He is utilizing that as a landmark for his campaign time and time again. I think the bigger question is why we are still seeing growth, political growth amongst the Latino population leaning towards someone who has shown over and over and over that regardless of where you come from or what you look like, if you are Latino, you are a threat to our communities. You are a threat to America. You are a threat to the very survival of white people. That is what he is doing with this rhetoric. And he doesn't care whether he's spreading it in Aurora or whether he's going to Detroit talking to the largest city in Michigan, which is still a battleground state. And for lack of a better term, crapping on that city. It is very frustrating. It's very difficult to get around. And the fact that he still remains neck and neck in the polls, he's not going to stop because there has not been, up to this date, there has not been a drop off for him in support.
Yeah, I have no answer to the question you posed there as to why. But anyway, Brendan, even the people who invited Trump to Detroit, they weren't happy with his knock on the city. And then there's this constant attack on migrants. Is there a point at all where even his supporters need to hear a more optimistic message?
I hate to say no. Look, I think they are convinced that immigration is a winning issue for them. And so they will do and say anything to make immigration the topic of conversation. That's what Springfield was all about. And J.D. Vance basically said that out loud. But, you know, if I have to draw your attention over here so that you're focused on immigration, I'm going to do whatever I need to do that. They think that that's a winning issue. And frankly, it's a much bigger issue than I think Democrats appreciated for a very long time. And I think it caught up to them. And obviously, Kamala Harris is trying to do everything that she can to demonstrate that she's going to be tough on the border. But look, this is what it comes down to. If we are talking about immigration for the next 3 weeks, that is a very good thing for Donald Trump. If we are talking about abortion or maybe the economy, then Kamala Harris is in a better position. This is all about the sprint for the last 3 weeks. Who is setting the tone? What is the conversation we are having? And he knows, and he is willing to be much more outlandish to control what we talk about. It's what he's done his entire career, and here he is doing it again.
You know, Brendan, there is a new New York Times article, and it suggests that Trump is lashing out behind closed doors over money. Are campaign donations drying up, and how much of a problem does this pose?
I mean, look, he's raised a lot of money, but he's also given a lot of it away to lawyers. The real issue is that Kamala Harris has had a fundraising bonanza, and she's able to go into places that he simply can't. I don't know why he's campaigning in California and New York. You know, if he's concerned about money, they shouldn't be wasting money on events like that. He has really is only himself to blame if they're coming up short and they can't expand into states that they want to, or they can't open up the kind of operations that they want to. There's been an incredible amount of mismanagement in that way. The reality is, though, this is more about Kamala Harris and the enthusiasm that she's been able to build, which allows her to now put states like North Carolina in play that we didn't necessarily think were before.
So, Misha, a new Washington Post article suggests that the Harris and Trump camps, they're looking at this race in different ways. Trump says he's winning. The Harris folks being more cautious, saying she could lose. What do you think is behind these two approaches, and do you prefer the caution?
I do prefer the caution, especially for Kamala Harris, because she knows that if polls are to be believed, this is neck and neck. She knows that this is going to be a turnout race, a GOTV, get out the vote race, and it is going to be that up to and through Election Day. She also knows of the demographics that she has to get out, and in large number, in many cases in larger number than Biden got out in 2020. She's ran as the underdog this entire time, which makes sense considering she's had the shortest runway to a presidential election of anybody in American history. But in addition to that, I think that Donald Trump, because he always wants to exude strength, he always wants to exude that he's ahead even when he's not. He is known for his lies and his bombastic nature. For his base, this matters to him. He can never showcase that he may lose, because at that point, it runs against and runs an affront to everything that he stands for and everything that his base believes in. So this exertion of power, of strength, of I'm winning no matter what, he came out of the debate that we roundly saw him lose and told everybody he won that too. This is something that Trump has been known for, and I don't think he's going to walk away from it.
And Amisha, Governor Tim Walz today, he's out pheasant hunting with the media in tow. I mean, this is clearly a campaign strategy, rather unconventional. Is it a good idea? I mean, are there enough voters that this will inspire to vote for the Harris-Walz ticket?
If we believe that America is led by its misogyny, America is led by a belief that a woman does not have the power, the leadership, or the strength to be president, which I do think that there is a segment of the American population that is stuck on that. If that is to be believed holistically, having a man on the ticket and a man who is showcasing that he is a man's man and he is out here doing the nature things that are expected from certain segments of the American population, that could be a ticker point. But to the polls you showed earlier, this is going to come down between the economy, reproductive rights, and how people feel about immigration. I don't think that gun toting in any way is going to be the top line of whether or not somebody makes a distinction between voting for Trump or voting for Harris. Like has been said multiple times before, it's the economy, stupid.
Yeah. Brendan, we have the New York Times, which interviewed J.D. Vance this week, and 5 times he refused to say Donald Trump lost. Do they fear they're going to lose more voters if they admit Trump lost than they would if they simply told the truth?
I think they just fear Donald Trump. I think everybody in the Republican Party wants to say out loud, of course, Donald Trump lost in 2020, but as we've now covered extensively, he refuses to ever say he's a loser, and he doesn't want to face that kind of backlash. And it is, I think, incredibly damaging. I mean, I thought in the debate with Kamala Harris, the very worst moment for Donald Trump was his 2-minute riff on how he actually won the 2020 election. It just makes him look so small and petty, and he wants to project this image of strength, but it just makes him look totally out to lunch. And it just puts everybody in the Republican Party in this stupid position. I mean, I guess anybody who wants to stay in Trump's good graces, there's not a good answer. J.D. Vance knows very well that Donald Trump lost fair and square, but Donald Trump puts him in this position, and he probably just doesn't want to get his hand slapped.